Welcome, learner, to another deep dive right here at the All Sorts podcast. Today we're diving deep into the world of Chanakya,
Absolutely.
a figure whose name, it echoes throughout history in India, and his insights continue to resonate even today. You hear his name and you think strategist, mastermind.
Right. And what's really fascinating is this interplay you have between the legendary accounts of him, almost like a mythical figure, and then trying to figure out, well, what can we glean from the actual historical record?
Yeah, because we've got these narratives that have been passed down for centuries, and they offer these really different perspectives on him, like his origins, what motivated him, and the impact he had. So what we're going to try to do is explore these different perspectives and see how it all fits in with a historical context.
Exactly. Yeah.
So learner, get ready to journey back in time with us as we uncover the captivating tales of Chanakya's origins and his almost unbelievable role in Chandragupta Maurya's rise to power. Plus, we'll delve into the historical currents that shaped this remarkable mind. So let's dive in and really unpack this.
Let's do it.
All right, so one of the things that just jumps out at you when you start looking into Chanakya is how much he's credited with.
Oh, yeah.
You read these sources and they label him as a generalist. But then when you see the list of everything he was supposedly good at, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Educator, writer, tactician, philosopher, economist, lawyer, and imperial counselor. Like, we're talking about ancient India here. How could one person be so accomplished in all these different fields? It's almost like we're talking about several brilliant minds all rolled into one person.
Yeah, it really raises questions about what expertise meant back then, right? Because the fact that he has all these roles and that they're consistently attributed to him across different accounts suggests that maybe they had a totally different understanding of knowledge and how to use it, And of course, we can't forget about his other names, Kautilya and Vishnugupta, which are closely tied to the Arthashastra.
Ah, the Arthashastra.
That essential Indian treatise on governance.
Right.
Which is dated roughly from the 4th century BCE to the 3rd century CE.
So like a really comprehensive manual for running a state.
Exactly. Think of it as a handbook for everything a ruler needs to know.
Wow. And it wasn't just relevant back then, was it?
No.
He's considered the father of Indian classical political economy, and his work is seen as a precursor to classical economics.
Precisely.
We're talking about someone who planted the early seeds of economic thought as we know it.
Absolutely. And the fact that these incredibly influential writings disappeared for centuries around the 6th century CE, only to be rediscovered in the early 20th century. That rediscovery wasn't just finding an old book. It was like unlocking a hidden chamber of Indian intellectual and political history.
Yeah. It's amazing to think that something so important could be lost for so long. Yeah. And speaking of important, we can't overlook his pivotal role in helping Chandragupta Maurya rise to power and establish the Mauryan Empire around 321 BC. We're not just talking about offering advice from the sidelines.
No.
This guy was deeply involved in the very creation of this major empire.
He was at the heart of it.
And it doesn't stop there.
Yeah.
He continued to serve as principal advisor to Chandragupta's son, Bindusara.
Right. Which really speaks to how much they valued him.
Exactly. It shows he wasn't just a temporary figure. His influence spanned generations, which is a testament to the trust and respect he commanded.
Definitely a sign of his lasting impact.
Now let's step back in time and look at the legends surrounding his origins and early life. And already we find some interesting discrepancies. When it comes to his birthplace, some sources point to Chanakya village in the Gola region of South India, which is a detail often found in Jain traditions. While Buddhist legends tend to mention Takshashila, sometimes specifically the city, other times the region as a whole. So what do you make of these different origin stories? Do they tell us anything about how he was perceived by these different traditions?
It's very likely that these variations reflect the geographical and religious contexts where these stories were preserved and shared. The Jain and Buddhist traditions, with their own histories and perspectives, naturally incorporated details that resonated with their beliefs and their locations. They may have even wanted to connect him to places of significance within their own narratives.
That makes sense.
And then there's this captivating legend surrounding his birth, the one about him being born with a full set of teeth.
Oh, I've heard of this one.
Yeah. Apparently, priests interpreted this as a sign that he was destined for royalty.
Makes sense.
But then the story splits. Some say his father, worried that his son would become arrogant, broke his teeth.
Wow.
While others claim that Chanakya himself broke them to reassure his mother, who feared he'd forget about her once he was in power. It's fascinating how these symbolic accounts already present different interpretations of him right from the start.
Right.
This whole idea of the full set of teeth symbolizing royalty and then the breaking of them, it introduces this tension between destiny and humility.
Yeah.
Whether it was his father's fear of arrogance or Chanakya's own attempt to stay grounded, it adds this layer of complexity to his character.
And then on top of that, you've got these prophecies from monks predicting that he would become a powerful figure in the royal court. It's almost as if he was destined for greatness from the very beginning.
Right. These prophecies definitely play a role in foreshadowing his future prominence. They reinforce the idea that his rise to power wasn't just coincidence, but something inevitable, or at least that's how it's presented in these accounts.
Yeah, it adds that element of destiny to his story. And one source even mentions his marriage to a Brahmin woman and the social mockery she faced for marrying someone who wasn't wealthy.
Oh, wow.
And it suggested that this experience actually fueled Chanakya's ambition to seek contributions from King Nanda. It adds a personal dimension to his later conflict with the Nanda dynasty, suggesting that maybe personal grievances played a part alongside any grand political aspirations.
It definitely humanizes him, right? It suggests that this wasn't just some abstract power struggle. There were real emotions and personal stakes involved.
Exactly. It makes the story so much more engaging.
Yeah.
And that brings us to his infamous clash with the Nanda dynasty. The incident at King Nanda's palace, where he sits on the throne, refuses to move and is then humiliated and ejected by a servant.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful image. So one of those moments that really sticks with you.
Right. It speaks volumes about pride and disrespect.
Absolutely. And this event is consistently highlighted across different traditions as the turning point in Chanakya's story. It's what fuels that legendary vow of his to not just remove Nanda from power, but to completely uproot his entire dynasty.
That vow is serious business. The source even compares it to a tremendous wind uprooting a tree.
Wow. That's a powerful image.
It really captures the intensity of his anger and determination.
You can feel the force behind that vow.
And from that moment of intense anger comes his search for a worthy successor to the Nandas. And this is where we encounter that captivating Buddhist legend of him observing young Chandragupta playing the role of an emperor.
Ah, the future emperor playing make-believe.
Yeah. Even as a child, Chandragupta supposedly displayed those inherent leadership qualities. So what was it about this young boy at play that caught Chanakya's attention? What did he see in him?
It speaks to his ability to recognize potential right, to see those qualities in someone so young, to see a future leader in a child at play. That takes a deep understanding of human nature.
And he didn't just observe him. He went a step further and purchased the boy for 1,000 gold coins.
Whoa, that's an investment.
And promised to teach him a trade. It really shows his commitment to shaping Chandragupta into the ruler he envisioned.
Yeah, he was fully invested in this boy's future.
Absolutely. And then we have this intriguing detail about a test involving amulets and a woolen thread, which was meant to assess the worthiness of both Chandragupta and another young man named Pobhata.
Interesting. Sounds like a very specific and maybe even cryptic selection process.
Right. It's almost like Chanakya had this very deliberate and rigorous method for choosing his protege.
He wasn't leaving anything to chance.
And of course, Chandragupta passes the test while Pobhata doesn't, further solidifying his role in Chanakya's grand plan.
It's like destiny was on his side.
And then comes the intense training. 7 years of rigorous combat training under Chanakya's guidance, transforming this young boy into a formidable warrior.
It's an incredible transformation.
It shows us that Chanakya wasn't just an intellectual or a strategist. He was also this hands-on mentor, deeply involved in shaping Chandragupta's physical and martial development.
It was about molding him into a complete leader, mind and body.
Exactly. But even with all this preparation, the road to empire wasn't a smooth one.
Yes, there were obstacles.
There were setbacks and lessons to be learned. We read about Chandragupta's initial attack on Magadha with a relatively small force, which ended in a pretty decisive defeat by the Nandas' much larger army.
Yeah, even with Chanakya's brilliance, they weren't immune to failure.
Right. It shows that this wasn't some effortless victory. They had to face challenges and learn from their mistakes.
It adds a sense of realism to the story.
And one of the most insightful moments comes from this defeat. We hear about Chanakya and Chandragupta overhearing a woman scolding her son for eating the middle of a cake and leaving the edges.
Oh, I love that story.
Right. It's so simple, yet so profound. She compares his foolishness to Chandragupta's mistake of attacking the heavily fortified capital directly instead of securing the surrounding villages first.
It's a brilliant analogy.
It highlights the importance of strategy and understanding the bigger picture.
Don't just go for the center. You got to secure the edges first.
Exactly. So they take this lesson to heart, and revised their approach, focusing on conquering those border villages before advancing on Pataliputra. And there are even accounts of Chanakya amassing wealth to finance their growing army. Some sources attribute it to clever financial dealings, while others suggest more fantastical means like alchemy or even magic.
That's where the story gets really interesting. It adds that mythical element to what was otherwise a very strategic campaign.
Right. It speaks to his resourcefulness and determination to achieve his goals by whatever means necessary.
And there's that thrilling episode of them hiding in a lake disguised as a meditating monastic to avoid an enemy officer.
Yeah, like something straight out of a spy thriller.
It just adds to the excitement of the story. It portrays him as someone who could think on his feet and use deception when needed.
Definitely. And finally, we arrive at the establishment of the Mauryan Empire, with Chanakya serving as Chandragupta's chief minister. And it's clear from all the sources that his role was absolutely essential to their success.
Absolutely. And this is where the Arthashastra becomes so significant.
Right.
It's a comprehensive guide to statecraft, and it laid out the blueprint for how the state should be organized. Everything from economics and law to military strategy and diplomacy.
So it was like a blueprint for the entire empire.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that Chandragupta's administration so closely mirrored what's described in the Arthashastra suggests that Chanakya had a major hand in shaping the empire's foundation.
And we can't forget about the Arthashastra's strong emphasis on espionage. Chanakya famously advised the king to create vast networks of informants, basically a widespread surveillance system.
Yeah, that's a key aspect of his political philosophy, this idea of constant vigilance against potential threats, both internal and external.
One source even calls it a realistic, if not cynical, attitude towards human nature.
Right. It speaks to his pragmatic view of power and the understanding that maintaining control requires constant awareness and a bit of distrust.
And as we discussed earlier, his service didn't end with Chandragupta. He continued to be a key figure under Bindusara, serving as royal counselor, economist, and philosopher.
That's right. His influence extended across multiple reigns, which really highlights his importance to the early Mauryan Empire. He wasn't just a kingmaker, he was also a vital force behind the empire's stability and administration.
But now, learner, you might be wondering how historically accurate all this is. And one interesting point that comes up is that Chanakya isn't mentioned in the accounts of Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador who was present in Chandragupta's court.
That's a curious detail.
This absence has actually led some historians to question the extent of his historical reality. So what are your thoughts on this? How do we reconcile this discrepancy?
It's a valid point. The fact that a contemporary foreign observer like Megasthenes, who had direct access to the Mauryan court, doesn't mention him, does complicate the traditional narrative. It forces us to consider whether his role might have been embellished or even developed later on.
Like his legend grew over time.
Possibly. And then there's the question of his identity in relation to Kautilya and Vishnugupta, the figures credited with writing the Arthashastra.
Right.
While they're often used interchangeably, the truth is more complex.
So we can't definitively say that Chanakya, Kautilya, and Vishnugupta are all the same person.
Right. The current thinking is that the Arthashastra was probably a collaborative effort written by multiple authors over a long period. Maybe its core ideas originated during the Mauryan era, but it was likely added to and refined over the centuries.
So maybe the association with a single author like Chanakya was a later attempt to give the work more authority.
It's possible. Maybe during the Gupta period, they wanted to link it to this legendary figure to boost its credibility.
That's fascinating. And then we have all these different versions of the Chanakya Chandragupta Katha, the story of their rise to power.
Right. It's amazing how many variations exist.
We have Buddhist versions, Jain versions, Kashmiri versions, and even one from the Mudrakshasa, a later Sanskrit play.
Each with its own unique flavor and emphasis.
Like a kaleidoscope of interpretations.
Exactly. And they provide valuable insights into how Chanakya was perceived and reinterpreted across different cultures and religions over time.
For instance, the Buddhist version often portrays him as befriending Dhananada's son, Pabada, and even includes a story about his ability to multiply gold coins. And then there's that dramatic tale of him slowly poisoning Chandragupta to build his immunity.
It's a wild story.
And the rather intense account of Bindusara's birth.
The Buddhist narratives tend to emphasize his cunning, but also his righteousness. They present him as a figure who helped establish a just ruler after the perceived corruption of the Nandas. And these additional elements just add to the drama and intrigue.
And then you have the Jain version, which highlights his birth to lay Jain's his marriage to a Brahmin woman and his alliance with King Parvataka.
Right.
And they even introduce this idea of poison girls.
Interesting.
And ultimately, he meets a different end. In this version, dying at the hands of Bindusara's minister, Subandhu.
The Jain narratives focus more on his adherence to certain ethical principles, even while employing strategic cunning. And that different ending really shows how the legend evolved over time.
Then there's the Kashmiri version, which brings in characters like Shakuntala and focuses on revenge against a fake emperor. It's quite a unique take on the story.
Right. The Kashmiri version weaves him into this broader narrative of political intrigue and vengeance. It shows how these legends were adapted and reinterpreted within different regional and cultural contexts.
And finally, we have the Mudrakshasa, which presents this very intricate picture of political maneuvering alliances with King Parvateshvara, the resistance of Nanda's minister Rakshasa, and Chanakya's extensive use of spies and deceit.
The Mudrakshasa really emphasizes his strategic brilliance and his willingness to use morally questionable tactics to achieve his goals. It's a very politically charged portrayal.
It is. And despite all these different, sometimes conflicting accounts and the scholarly debates about his historical accuracy and the true authorship of the Arthashastra, Chanakya's legacy in India is undeniable.
Absolutely.
He's still revered as a brilliant thinker and master strategist. His name has become synonymous with political acumen.
Right. You see his influence everywhere.
Yeah.
The diplomatic enclave in New Delhi is named Chanakya, and there are countless institutions named after him.
It's a testament to his enduring impact on Indian culture and thought. And it's fascinating to see how his principles are now being studied and applied in modern management contexts.
Oh, yeah.
There are clear parallels between his ancient guidelines for rulers and modern business concepts like planning, organization, and control.
It's amazing how his wisdom transcends time.
It really is. It shows that some of his insights into leadership and human behavior are just as relevant today as they were centuries ago.
Definitely. And the fact that his ideas are being used in fields like management speaks to the enduring value of his contributions.
So even though the exact details of his life may be debated, and the legends paint a complex and sometimes contradictory picture, his influence is undeniable. His presence in Indian legend and the wisdom attributed to him solidify his place as a major figure in Indian history.
I think that's a great way to sum it up.
So, learner, we hope this deep dive into the legends and historical context of Chanakya has sparked your curiosity and given you some new insights.
I hope so, too.
If you enjoyed this journey with us, please do us a favor and share this deep dive with your friends. Like a beacon, guiding others to knowledge. Let's spread the word.
That's a great way to put it.
And don't forget to subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube. We're building a community of curious minds here, and we'd love for you to join us.
Absolutely.
Plus, we have a treasure trove of other deep dives waiting for you in our back catalog, so be sure to check those out. And if you want to join the conversation and connect with us directly, you can find us on Hext, Instagram, and Threads. Just search for All Sorts Podcast. Until our next deep dive, keep those questions coming and stay curious.
See you next time, learner.
Mauryan.